Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We've bellied up to the bar today with, let's see all the things I can get in here. Award-winning podcaster, actor, producer, look of what could be a James Bond level, like got kind of the James Bond look. He could be in that, like maybe not, I don't mean this in a mean way, maybe not necessarily James Bond, but like definitely like the guy who walks by and he's like, it's 005. So we've got bellying up to the bar with us today, coming all the way from the far left coast, Mr. You're in Cali, right?
I'm in Cali, yeah.
So because we're going to send life preservers and rafts to him at some point today. We got hanging out with us, Mr. Kash Hovey.
Thanks, Sean.
Absolutely good, sir. What are you anywhere near where all this? Like I just saw it on news. I didn't realize how bad it was till I saw the news today.
Oh yeah, it's been pouring all day.
Like you guys have like the equivalent of a. It looked like a hurricane, like rolling in.
I haven't heard any reports of a hurricane, but it's really been coming down the last couple of days.
Yeah, they said like Sacramento's in like all kinds of bad shape. Like
oh whoa, no, I haven't heard that. Yeah, no, I've actually have a relative from Carmel in town. But they've been in Palm Springs.
Bad. Like that was Palm Springs bad. Well, I guess like
I just got back from Palm Springs. It was actually beautiful. I was there for Christmas, and it was the sun was up. We played golf. It was great.
Yeah, see, California's so odd to me. Like I'm not like I spent my time out there was like 29 Palms and San Diego, very all the Marine Corps spots out there. But definitely when I was out, see, I was the guy when everybody was like, I love San Diego. I'm like, San Diego sucks. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, because I'm always in San Diego in May and June. Like for some reason, that's when the Marine Corps sent me there.
Right.
So I got the May grays and the June glooms.
Mm-hmm.
When everybody else was like, this place is amazing. I'm like, nope, I got every shitty weather option that you could possibly have out there. But I appreciate you coming out and hanging with us tonight, brother. I know you've got your show, Cat on the Air with Kash, which we got rolling through the bottom of the screen, and that's Kash with a K. Do a little bit of house cleaning. And look, if you're finding us through Kash, please take a moment, share this to all your yard sale sites, all the places on Facebook or wherever else that you listen or watching us live. The goal here is always the same. Get kicked off of that yard sale site. You did not need somebody's used stuff anyway. So go ahead and find a way to get kicked off of that. As always, we've got sticker and a cause. And for those of you that are just joining us, over my right shoulder, we got the big board. If you've got something you're supporting, maybe you have your own podcast, a band, you're doing a comic book. I don't care what it is. Whatever you've got, if you reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and TikTok, and our email, they're all the Above the Bar podcast. Reach out. Let me know what it is. I'll tell you where to send the sticker to. We'll read it here live on the air. I actually left today's sticker upstairs. I got to grab it here in a moment. Maybe my wife will bring it down. We're at one of our favorite restaurants and bars out in Vermont. They didn't have a sticker, but they had their beer label. So the guy gave me one of his beer labels. He's like, here, read about the beer label. So we're going to do that when we get a moment. So make sure if you're in Vermont, check out the greatest name of any restaurant, Kash. You ready?
Okay.
Beer Naked Brewery.
Beer Naked Brewery. Okay. I like it.
Beer Naked Brewery on Hogback Mountain. Does it get any better than that? I mean,
doesn't get better than that. Yeah.
It covers all the bases. So make sure you're checking those guys out. Give them all your support. And look, maybe your media needs to find out what it's like to be in Hollywood. Maybe your media is still back here in the Lucille Ball days and you need to upgrade it. Make sure you reach out to Media by Dibs, and that's DIBS. Make sure you reach out and you tell Media by Dibs, you tell Dibs that you're here to belly up to the bar. He's going to give you a 10% discount on your first order and a free consultation. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram as Media by Dibs. And if you look him up on LinkedIn, he's Andrew Dibble. All right. House cleaning's done, Kash. We're ready to go. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, you're such a like, folks, you have no idea. Like, Cash is just a nice guy. Like, he's been so great with all the posts that we put out. He's made comments, he's shared, he's put them on his timeline. If you want to know what it's like to be a good guest, I feel like I'm a horrible guest when I go on people's shows. Cash is a good guest. So I appreciate that, brother. I have to tell you that right off the bat.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, so I do my part.
It is definitely a nice thing. So you've been, and I kind of hinted about this in the teaser for the show. You've been involved in Hollywood since 2005. About that time, is that about right?
I'd say professionally, yeah. I mean, I grew up around it, and I made stuff when I was a kid. But I'd say professionally, that makes sense.
Now, when you say you grew up around it, what do you mean?
Well, yeah. Well, my dad was a music executive. My mom had worked in television, so. And when you grow up in LA, you're always around the industry. I mean, me and my friends were making movies with our camcorders, and I find these projects that we did. I mean, we were making movies with like Ashley Bell from Last Exorcist, Dylan Francis, who's a DJ, and Michael Schumann from Queens of the Stone Age. I have movies. Oh yeah, when we're little kids, we're just taking the camera around and doing our thing, and then yeah.
That's so awesome. Not name dropping or nothing. I mean, not name dropping, but I mean, just hanging out with members of the Queens of the Stone Age back in the Stone Age.
Back in the Stone Age, exactly.
So, everybody wants to get into Hollywood. At some point, I don't care who you are, every kid at some point thought, well, I could do this and be famous, or I could do that and get involved. What was it that, obviously you like you said, you were around these people that were in the industry or got into it, but what was it for you that made you say, okay, I'm gonna go this route?
Yeah, ever since I was a kid, I was always drawing and recreating scenes and dressing up. So I felt just whatever. I mean, I guess, being a millennial, you kind of grew up with video games and television. So I was always imitating stuff on TV. And then I found other friends who were similar, like-minded. And so I think it was really when I was about 13 or 14 is when I'd started, that was that age when, we had already done some movies with friends, and then it was starting to do plays. And then I was starting to meet more people who were, actively in the industry. And then I ended up getting an agent. But my thing is when I was 15, I was already 6 foot. So they wanted older to play younger. So everyone thought I was a senior and not a freshman. So it wasn't until I was 17 that I started getting cast like my age. I'm like, okay, good.
Oh, that's hilarious. See, like, I wouldn't even know what it would be like I'm at the opposite problem. I'm 5'5", I'm 5'7.5", where everybody else in my family is like 6'2", 6'6", 6'4", and then there's me.
Oh.
So did you all me? I got all for being short.
No, I didn't want you to feel. No.
But no, that's great. So what was some of the first, like you're talking about this. So, your dad being in the music industry, did that help you as far as like an in with some of this stuff? Like being able to say, oh, well, hey, my dad is, how about you talk to me? Did that help in any way?
It's interesting how that happens. I mean, my parents were there's only so much. I mean, parents and people that, they can open the doors for you.
Right.
And I mean, even knowing certain people, just, you grow up around certain people, or you look at, oh, you're friends with so-and-so, why don't you talk to them? It's at the end of the day, it is a very competitive industry too. So if you're hanging out with someone famous thinking that's an in, just know you really have to, I mean, just from experience, it's really making that decision. Am I just going to be someone's friend, or do I want to do my own thing? And, being someone's friend can open so many doors, but like I said, it gets competitive. So people will help you so far, but then you really have to, I think, establish yourself on your own. But I mean, definitely, I mean, my parents were very adamant about my education. So, I still went to college. I studied a lot. And whenever there was something to be done, I mean, yeah, my dad or mom had no problem introducing me or opening a door for me. But then it's, you really have to be able to follow through and deliver.
You just got a great compliment. I have to go ahead and put this up. So my wife and I were looking to adopt a new puppy, and she says, love the name Cash with a K. And that's, folks, if you want to find him, again, it's On the Air with Cash, and that's KA$H. But that's our future pet's name. I'm going to say that's a pretty good compliment.
That's a pretty good compliment. Hey, someone named their kid after me, and now I'm getting pets. It's cool. I get it.
Now, Was it your kid that they named after you? I mean, was that? I mean,
Oh, so actually, yeah, someone did name their kid after me that I knew. Yeah.
okay. I was just like it didn't require DNA testing or anything.
Oh
After,
no, it was a guy friend of mine who
okay, just
named
double
his
check.
son Cash. Yeah. Nothing
Just
like
want to make sure it wasn't like, yeah, he named it. They named the kid,
oh, he kind of looks like you. I'm gonna name him Cash now.
yeah, no. Trust me, it's not. It's not me. I have nothing to do with it. So what was your? I mean, did you think that getting into Hollywood and getting into those pieces? Did you think that this was going to be like, hey, I'm in here now. I'm going to be like, give it a couple of weeks. I'm figuring Brad Pitt, Meryl Streep. I'll be opposite of them any day now, and the Oscars will roll in and I'll just, like, was that your initial thoughts? What was your thought going into those pieces?
I think, gosh, that kind of happened. I think because when I was like 12, 13, I think middle school was really when I was when I was pursuing it the most or was interested. So it was really watching stuff, studying different actors and different producers, getting inspired. It was more like hey, I mean, I would love to work with, some of the people that you just named. That would be a dream come true. And then I think the closest I got to I remembered being about 15, 16, like right when I got in, you do think, oh, great, I got an agent. This is going to be, you know, you know, this is going to be easy or whatever. And I think everyone goes through that initially, and then you realize, hey, it's competitive. And then, I mean, we joke, there was someone who I ran into recently, and he was, because he was always booking the stuff that I would go up for. Like they would want to hire me for a job, but because, like I said, I was underage, they would end up booking him. But, he's very talented, and he was a great musician. So it was necessary, I feel like, looking back, and it was just like, yeah, he deserved those, and that was cool. So it's funny to like, I ran into him years later, like, oh dude, what's up? And then, so there's that. And then, I remembered being in an acting class, and I remembered I think I just graduated from high school. I went to an acting class, and that's where I started to really meet people who were, people born in LA come to LA, but there were a lot of people who were like, oh yeah, I'm going to be the next Brad Pitt by this time next year. And I'm going to, oh yeah. And I mean, that was definitely a thing that was thrown around. And then, I had the experience of actually, being around certain people and being in the industry. And, it's not as easy as a lot of people think, but I've just always kept an open mind of like, hey, if something happens, great. I mean, like, I mean, here's an example. Like because I went through cycles, I did some stuff around college time. Then I took a break and went more the agency route and producing. And then I got back into it through the agency job. Someone had started managing me. We were collaborating. We did this project, and I find out the day I wasn't even sure if I was going to make it in this movie. And they're like, oh no, show up to set. And by the way, we got Shannon Doherty to play opposite you. And to me, that was like, growing up watching 90210 and Charmed, be like, dude, that was like a dream come true. So it's funny how those things happen,
Dude, like that's definitely. I mean, see, you went 90210. I would have went doggone no, I almost said Craft, but God, Charmed. I almost said the Craft, but see, I was thinking more Charmed. I wasn't a 90210. I was more of like into Alyssa Milano a lot.
I got you. Yeah.
So I was like, I mean, still, I mean, even with
90210, because it was so around. Like when I was a little kid, it was just everyone like, oh yeah, that's the street from 90210, or that's this, or that's the school. It was, or oh, there's the spelling mansion. People were always pointing out the spots from the show. So just
that's so hilarious. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like I grew up in Baltimore,
yeah,
and all of our shows are horrible things that are happening in our city as it's burning down around your ears. So you can be like, oh look, that's where Homicide: Life on the Street filmed that. Oh, that's where The Wire did this, or The Corner did that. Yeah, it was exactly nothing like it. I know ours is horrible. I always say that the reason Baltimore is the way it is 9 out of 10 times is because they've done so many shows about the city, about horrible things, that people feel like they have to live up to that image. So, and look, I mean, well, you might know who. Do you know Pat? Have you met Patty?
Hello, Patty. Hi, Patty.
Well, this is Nathan. So Patty actually got Nathan, who's
it's Nathan. Okay.
One of our great guests. Nathan's helped me a ton of times, and Patty actually is getting him into the ghost hunting world. She was on here.
Oh no! Yeah, I know Patty. Yeah, we're the same. Yeah,
yep. She's awesome. Well, that's how we met, was through Lisa.
Lisa, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. And Lisa is amazing. Everybody go check out. Lisa has her promotion coming. That's blanking in my head right now. Her PR
Link
company.
PR.
It's Link. What is it again?
LYNK, Link PR.
Link PR. Please go check them out if you're looking for guests. Lisa is amazing. She's so easy to deal with. Just a phenomenal, great person. So, but now you've taken as an, like I said, looked on your IMDb, if I remember right, 10 directing, 5 producing, you've won awards. I mean, you've done both sides of the camera. What was it like? And like you just said, here's Shannon Doherty. We all have an image of meeting celebrities, and we've all also heard that saying, never meet your heroes.
Mm-hmm.
What was some of the experiences? And you ain't got to say names. I like names, but you got to say names. But what was your experience as you were coming up? Was there anybody who you were expected to be like, hey, I always see this person on TV, they're rough and they're grumbly, but when you met them, they were just a big teddy bear, and you were like, oh, this is great. Like, they're super nice person.
Oh yeah, there's been a few. That's typically how it is. You see people who are so intimidating, and who else? Well, actually, someone who's Carrie Ellis from The Princess Bride. I remember seeing him at a party. This is when I was a kid, so I was at a party with my parents, and I knew who he was. And then about a few months later, we were at another party that he was at, and I was like really into Kubrick at the time, and I was going through my Kubrick phase, so I was dressed up a Clockwork Orange.
I love you. You just became a new best friend, Kash. I love Clockwork Orange.
Oh, great movie, yeah. And Carrie's English, and he actually came up to me and said, "Hey, mate, I love your costume." And I'm like, "Dude, you were like my first costume ever." And he was like the sweetest guy. He was like, "Oh, let's get a picture." So someone took up. It was like there were Polaroids at this party. I didn't get that picture, but there was over the years we've taken a bunch, so we've made up for that. And he's been a guest on my show. So, but that was one of those things too, where he was someone who I growing up watching Princess Bride numerous times, and it was funny because even after that I was a kid, and then I bumped into him. Maybe it was about 10 years later at another, and we ended up just talking for like an hour, and we've stayed in touch ever since. He's doing some stuff in LA. He always shoots me a text, so it's cool when that happens.
So he made one of my coworkers swoon.
Swoon.
Carrie Ellis made one of my old coworkers completely swoon. Like, this is a woman who is, when I say meaner than a box of rattlesnakes, I love Joanne to death. She's great. She's like super into heavy metal and all that kind of stuff. I used to work for Amtrak, and he was on the train. And he was sitting in business class, and she wouldn't go talk to him. And like, cause she was so nervous. And one of the other conductors went like, hey, he walked up and just like repeated some lines from The Princess Bride. And she was done. I love it. I've heard nothing but good things about that. He just ended her. She's like, I'm done. I can't work today. I cannot work at this point. That's so cool though. Now, you mentioned Clockwork Orange. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Sure.
Do you have a favorite Clockwork Orange line? I have one that I still use to this day if I'm in a situation. Do you have a favorite line?
Oh God, it's so quotable. There's that was actually my first movie. We put certain things in there, kind of like how Quentin Tarantino did with his. But oh my Devochka, or the all in out and out doobie doo.
There it is.
Yeah, there's the all in out and out. Yeah.
The best line is when he's showing the flashcards, and it's the thief coming through the window, and the woman's got the towel.
Yeah.
He goes, "No time for the old in and out, love. Just came to read the meter." I love that. Is one of my favorite lines.
He's actually another one. There was a family friend. They were English, and there was this event at the British consul's house. This is like my first year in college, and they invited me, and it was just kind of one of those things. But Malcolm turned around, and my friend's mom knew him. Like, oh, hey, this is Kash, and I was like, oh my God. So we ended up. He was another one. He was really just a humble guy. Just said, hey, I love your work, and we talked for a little bit. And he was super cool. Yeah.
Well, I've thought about this, and I'd love to get your feelings on it. Most actors aren't comfortable, and this is my thoughts, aren't fully comfortable with who they are. So pretending to be somebody else is easier. So when you meet them, a lot of them are shyer people. They're not very boisterous. Has that been a lot of your experience?
I feel, let's see. Yeah, I've really had such great experiences with people, to be honest. I mean, even oh gosh, I remember meeting Mark Wahlberg when I was like again like 15, and I was like really into Paul Thomas Anderson. I'd watched Boogie Nights a bunch of times, and I told him I was a fan. He actually pulled me aside and just talked to me for a little bit and just said, "Hey, I really appreciate that, man, and I hope to see you out there someday." So he was, and I've bumped into him a couple times over the years, and he's always just a sweet guy. I haven't. It's yeah, I find that way too. Or there are certain people who are. I've noticed there are certain comedians I've met who they have such a loud energy, but then sometimes they're a little more reserved and more shy. Don't really want to talk to people, or they're not like how they appear on screen sometimes.
So, and that kind of feeds into the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is your podcast. Got about 124, 127 episodes of that in the bag. It's on the air with Kash, and that's KA$H.
Mm-hmm.
On the air with Kash, and that's. Am I pronouncing your last name? Is it Hovey or Hovey?
Oh yeah,
Hovey. I want to make sure I wasn't butchering that. I butcher last names all the time. So, and make sure you're looking up Kash. You can find him on Facebook, Instagram. He's got about 14 different Instagrams to include a fan page. I was impressed by that. I don't know why. I don't know why Nathan hasn't started a fan page for the Above the Bar podcast.
They keep bringing up. I mean, every now and again, I'll get tagged in something. I'm like, oh my gosh, where they find this picture? where this one's
so
from? That's hilarious.
But you got a fan page. I mean, so you're doing it with the podcast. As you were moving into getting into that and interviewing celebrities, did it come up like, well, heck, I've met so many nice folks, the opportunity to do this? But is that where that comes from?
Actually, let's see. Well, it was one of these about a year before the pandemic is when I started getting into podcasts. I'd been working with some comics from the Comedy Store, and we were working on a pilot. And then we'd work, and then we go to their shows. And I mean, one night we were just there, and Bob Saget showed up and did a set. Joe Rogan did a set. Whitney Cummings showed up and did a set. So it was and then I'd start getting into podcasts. I like that dynamic of where, because I love Rogan and Whitney Cummings, and they're friends and they do each other's shows. And so I was watching both of their podcasts a lot and getting into it leading up to the pandemic. And then when the pandemic happened, it was basically work from home. So we were doing a lot of Instagram lives, and actually another person who was an influence was Michael Rosenbaum. He played Lex Luthor in Smallville.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was one of these things. So I was working, I was working on voiceover with him, and he had told me about his podcast. And again, it was right when I was getting into it. And I'd listened to it on the way to work, and I'd be like, I just really love the engagement you have. And I mean, he had Beverly D'Angelo on, and I had just met her as well too, and she later was a guest on my show. And it was just the way that he engages with his guests, really knew his. Was an admirer of their work and their friends. So that's where I started studying the art form of it. And so it started off as this thing with, me and my friends during the pandemic to, so we could all just stay connected and do something. And then later on that year, the old studio, I still have it. It was a glass sign that says, lights up, it says on air with Kash. I need to do something about the wall so that the light looks proper on camera. I still have it. My dad gave that to me as a birthday gift that year, and so I took it as a sign.
So cool.
I spent a lot of time in the studio, and we're doing this. So yeah, it made me want to get into the podcasting.
So it's funny you bring up Michael Rosenbaum. I just saw a comment from him where they asked him about would he want to reprise that role as Lex Luthor in the DCU, and he said absolutely. I would love to see some of those Smallville characters come into that. Were you a fan? Like, I got to ask that question. And Nate, I'll get to your question. Nate has the most important question of all times. But do you ever, are you into the whole DC, Marvel, any of that? Or is it do you feel like they're beating a dead horse at this point?
I'm still a fan of the movies. I mean, I know what you mean. I mean, the thing is they do. I mean, I even just growing up, I mean, like with the Dark Knight and everything, it was, or with Star Wars. I mean, I remember being a little kid when they re-released the originals, and then when the prequels came out, you had to wait 3 years. But now I feel like you can catch up at any time, or they're always before I even know. So they're very enjoyable, and I mean, I still love going to the movies, and yeah, so I mean, I'll always go and see, and I really Dark Knight, the DC, Marvel, Iron Man. I mean, I love all those movies and those characters, and yeah, I mean, Michael, I guess he does Guardians of the Galaxy. Michael Rosenbaum does, and so yeah, I mean, I think they should try to bring him back into DC.
That's going to be what keeps me out of Hollywood right there is Guardians of the Galaxy. I have an
Yeah.
entire diatribe that I get into that I love all the characters from the Guardians, but I'm an
Mhm.
old school comic book guy. Like you can't see it behind the camera right now, but I have things like uh CG Seed, Adam Warlock books. I have the first appearance of Thanos, the first full story of Thanos. I've got my personal favorite cover, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, with
Uh-huh.
Speedy with a heroin needle. That's it. Like that was an actual done by Neil Adams. They have all these things behind me. So when I watch these, I know the history of the characters. And look, he everybody's like, James Gunn knows all those comic books. I'm like, no, he doesn't. He ain't never read a Guardians of the Galaxy a day in his life. People are like, yes, he has. I'm like, do we want to get into this? And I can't tell you how many times I've been cussed out on social media. And I normally just go, at this point, I obviously know that I've gotten my argument correct because you've gone to violence and ignorance. But yeah, see, that's the dork in me. That's my big dorkness. So, I got to throw that out there. But Nate has an important question. At these Hollywood gatherings, what is your go-to food?
Oh gosh, I love sushi. I love pizza. What else do we have? Gosh, love Vietnamese food too, and they've
Oh,
opened some great restaurants now. Yeah,
have you had Viet Cajun?
I haven't had Cajun yet. No,
No, Viet Cajun.
what's Viet Cajun?
So that's a big thing in Houston now because they have a
Okay,
very large Vietnamese population in Houston. It's been there for a long time post Vietnam. And
okay,
they've kind of married it with Cajun food, which is also big in Houston because it's
all
right
right.
there. And
Mhm.
they've created an entire genre of food called Viet Cajun.
Okay,
And I've had it. We have a place here called Union in Albany, New York, that has that kind of Viet Cajun. It's so good, so good.
right. Okay, all right. I'm not. All right, that's gonna be on my note. I just
It'll
moved them in. Literally everything's walkable, so they're always open. So I Viet Cajun. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Viet Cajun. It's a must. There, like I tell people, and there's a fat kid that lives in my soul. You could actually, if you want to start doing a lot of movies again, you need to come to Albany. Like that HBO Gilded Age, that's here.
Uh-huh.
That's like
Okay.
down the street from the house. That one, it's an older movie, but Salt was done here in Albany.
Okay, all right. Yeah. I know it's
Albany's,
amazing. There's so many productions all over
yeah,
where you'd least expect it. Because this is the first time hearing about all. I knew Atlanta and yeah, in Georgia, but yeah, that
yeah.
doesn't
You'd be
surprise me. I mean, here's stuff with Wyoming, Colorado. So yeah.
we're in New York. You've got um, New York is friendly to all the Hollywood pieces to the puzzle, so they've got that. But Troy is an older city. Harrison Ford just did some movie here. Like he was
Oh,
just
no way.
finishing.
Okay.
Yeah, they've got all that stuff going on down here. There it is. Ironweed was just done here. Um,
Ironweed. Okay.
he just did Ironweed, which is based on a book, and I think it was Gary that
Mhm.
the writer is from Albany that wrote Ironweed, and we even have a bourbon company that has all the stuff called Ironweed. So
Okay.
getting back, I told you we're gonna make left turns, brother. I told you. But
Hey, I'm gonna do. I dig it.
getting back on track. So as you're getting ready and you know all these folks, and I saw that you had interviewed Whitney Cummings. I'm going to admit it now. I know my wife was watching, but I definitely have a crush on Whitney Cummings. I do not have the confidence enough to date a Whitney Cummings because I feel like she would just bust my chops the entire time. But I love her interviews. I've seen her on Two Bears, One Cave. I've seen her on Joe Rogan. I've seen her on so many different things. She's amazing. How did it, what was your approach though? Because a lot of us out here who do podcasts or want to get into podcasting, we want those bigger names. We want those people like you're mentioning, even if, they were, I think Whitney Cummings is still she's still on the top of the comedy game, in my opinion.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I mean, I just saw her I think it was the Netflix thing. I just saw her in something, but
Hmm.
what was, your approach to some of these folks not wanting to hurt friendships, possibly, to be like, hey, would you come on my show? Not wanting, worried about that rejection of somebody being like, man, I ain't coming on your podcast. I ain't got time for that. What was your approach to those folks?
Well, to her, that was actually an interesting thing. So I've been thinking, just being in LA, it's I mean, and I've definitely reached out to people where, it's that long road to know, basically. And I mean, there's someone that I knew and I texted and they were like, oh, yeah, get in touch with my people. And then of course, our team reaches out and then they're not a bit. It's like, and then of course, this person being the person that they are was like, oh, hey, how'd it go with my, it's like, you know how it went, dude. It's like, so, you do get a lot of these. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
they have the,
Yeah. So I know.
So, I mean, there was like what, so, whatever, it happens. But Whitney, actually, that was an interesting story because and again, this is, for me, it was just kind of getting up, doing the podcast. You can't be afraid to fail. You're going to hear a bunch of no's before a yes comes along. I mean, we submit constantly. We don't always hear back. Sometimes we get rejected. But then the Whitney thing, actually, that was an interesting thing because I'd done more in studio. I've only had maybe a handful of friends come over. And then I actually started doing some live stuff, like for some film festivals, and that I've been involved with. So as it happened, Whitney was getting honored with this award. It's called the Rodney Respect Award. Like they've given it to Tim Allen and Jim Carrey, people who have who Rodney had mentored. And it was interesting because so that was happening at the Skirball Center here in LA, and it was the LA City College Foundation gala. And I guess Rodney had donated to them, and there's like a hall named after him. And so the awards, they were presenting it to Whitney. Now, I actually did the undergrad or the associate's degree. I got my associate's degree from LA City College, so I was an alum. I got submitted to go, and they were like, "Yeah, we'd love to have you, come and have some words with Whitney." I'm like, "That would be a dream come true. Let's do it." So it helps. I mean, it was just one of those things. Like I'd seen her live, I'd met her before in the past, but then it was like really one of those things where I showed up. They were very accommodating, and Whitney came and people were kind of doing just doing the interviews, and I just waited. And then we had a great moment. And then she gave me a compliment. She told me I was really nice, and I was like, okay. And that's on camera. We took some pictures, and yeah, then just her stories were incredible too. I mean, she got up on stage, and it was actually fun. The cool thing about her too is I was watching her speech, and she was talking about how her dad was always telling jokes. And then she said, so the first time she saw Caddyshack, she's like, oh man, there was this loud guy in like rainbow pants, and he's telling all my dad's jokes. And I'm telling my dad, dude, Dad, we got to get a lawyer. This guy's plagiarizing you. And he goes, oh yeah, this is guy Rodney Dangerfield. So her dad was always quoting Rodney Dangerfield and saying his jokes. And then she saw Caddyshack and saw his movie shit. And I'm like, dude, that was so my dad. I mean, I can remember my dad just telling jokes. And then he introduced us to like Caddyshack and Back to School that same summer. I'm like, oh, that's where we heard it. And that's where we got the references. So it was cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Here, my buddy George, he's got the Outlaw podcast. He got all these podcasters checking you. He says every unasked question is a no. Absolutely. Like, you got to be willing to get out there and ask people, to be guests. Absolutely. So you've had a pretty good plethora of well-known folks on your show. Who's some of the ones that, obviously I brought up Whitney because I am a fan personally. Who's some of the other folks that have stood out for you that maybe even when they did say yes, that you were like, oh shit, they said yes? Who's some of the ones for you?
Well, Carrie, definitely. He just had this movie with Brooke Shields come out. It was A Castle for Christmas, which is on Netflix now. So, it was coming up. I just texted him. He said, you got it. Let's, and he put me in touch with his people, and his people were very accommodated. They said yes. And, we arranged it. We did the interview, and then even and Beverly as well, Beverly D'Angelo. And that was an interesting thing because I had met her around the same time as Rosenbaum, and they had, she'd been a guest on his show. And we kept wanting to do it, but our schedules kept conflicting. Like she'd get booked on something, then I get booked on something. So as it happened, I think it was a few months ago, and it was really one of those episodes where we really just opened up, and I learned so much about her. She learned so much, and she actually called me the day before, and we talked for about an hour before we went on, just to talk about where to go with things and stuff that we were going to bring up. And so, and she's just someone who's really been, and it was one of that was a conversation that went on for, so Biz Griswold, of course.
Exactly.
And then, and she just has so many fascinating stories. Even she talks about booking that role, and before that, just what her life was in the 60s and 70s. And it's just really, when you watch that episode, you really just see the evolution and that journey that she went through. And I think we both kind of took a journey on that one.
Well, I mean, let's call it Beverly D'Angelo bombshell during those. I mean, just, stunning woman, still beautiful to this day. I mean, but wow. I mean, that's so cool to me. I'm gonna, I'm a little starstruck for you. I'll do it for you.
I get starstruck too. It's cool.
I mean, we are in this world. You start talking to folks. I've interviewed enough people where I'm like, hey, I've talked to Olympians, and people are like, what? I'm like, they're Olympians. They've won gold medals. It's pretty cool. I mean, I've talked to Kash Hovey, and he's on his own show called On the Air with Kash. I mean, you've got to go check the guy out. Now, how often is your show coming out?
Well, we took a little break during the holidays, and but we're looking to ramp up again this month. We have a few people we're scheduling, so it's really, sometimes we get a lot of interviews, or just a publicist will reach out like, oh, we have so and so, and they're trying to promote this. Do you have any room? And so we do our best to accommodate. And then, but even with me, it's like, I do other things too. I mean, this year was a busy year too with some acting. And then I got invited to co-host. That was another thing, because during the holidays, there's a show out here called Good Day Live. They film it in Brentwood. It's on Amazon. They stream it live on Amazon, Sway TV. And so it's like a daytime show with my friend Michelle Murad, and her partner on the show was out that week. So they asked me to fill in, and I brought some cool guests, and that was fun to do a live show. And I think it's a good balance, because, and she's someone who, because I mean, I can be animated and do my own thing. But with her, she's such an animated person. I mean, I don't know why she doesn't have multiple shows or movie deals. I mean, she's like really on that point right now where she's about to get discovered. I mean, she just gets out there, and her energy is so great. So I felt like in that, it's like, okay, this is her zone. And so I'm just kind of going to be more the, I guess like what I'm saying is I go into search to everything's a little bit different, where it's like, it's like, okay, so this is like her show, and I'm kind of, I'll be more like the sidekick, or like I want to say like straight, just kind of more reserved or whatever. And I'll throw in my quips every now and again, but like let her kind of control it with her energy. And so it's fun to do that balance too. Like, you do your thing, I'll do this, you come on my show, and we'll do it a different way.
Well, I saw all your posts about being on there in the morning show. I was going to ask you about that, if that was going to be a more regular thing, if that was something that you've kind of gotten into and it's going to keep going on, or if it was a short-term piece. I didn't know which way that was going.
Right, yeah. Well, on that, that was the co-star, the co-anchor, Kyle Trueblood, who was so talented, good friend. I mean, he's been so supportive of me and Michelle. He was out that week, so they asked me to fill in. But I mean, they're all friends of mine, so it's one of those things where if they need, I'm always down to work with my friends. So if I'm ever needed again, I'm happy to go on and help. And I've talked to Kyle and Michelle about other projects that we'd like to do. So, and that's the thing I like about them and a lot of people that I know, is everyone's a producer, everyone's a director, you really have to wear all hats nowadays. I mean, just look at us right now. It's like, you too, Sean, you're producing and starring in your own show. And I know it's, you direct and you do all the other stuff. So, I mean, you have to wear so many different hats. And so that's been the good thing about a lot of the people I've gotten to work with and collaborate with.
You definitely learn a lot. I was actually a great segue. Like, you were reading my mind for a minute. You talked about, because the other side you have to be your own technology person also.
Oh, yeah.
So you said you were doing some lives and going places. Do you, for yourself, do you have the lives that you've done? Are you bringing your own gear? Are they setting up for you? I really, because like I said, I don't know the California piece to it, and I am going to kind of play a little stupid here for a minute, and that Hollywood side to it. How does that work for you when you're going to do lives? Are you bringing your own gear, or are they having it set up for you?
Oh yeah. Well, when I really started doing that, the festival that I was actually, they just released the interviews. That was the Burbank Film Festival, Burbank International Film Festival. It was at the Burbank Marriott, and they had a crew. They just wanted me to be the host. So there were a few movies that they wanted like a mediator to or a moderator to, kind of just introduce the cast after the movie played, ask some questions, do a Q&A, and then closing night, Christine Lakin, who was she was on Step by Step. She played Patrick Duffy's daughter, and that was a show that I grew up watching in the '90s.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
oh yeah, and so, and she's had this epic career. She's another one. She went to college, got her degrees, and then but she directs for all the hit shows. Step by Step. Yeah, that was TGIF was ABC. She directs for like the Goldbergs and a bunch of shows
Really?
for ABC. Well, too. Oh yeah, so she's for Apple TV. And so she was the main host that evening. So I got to interview her and like Autumn Reeser and Mike Manning. I mean, there were so many just great people at that. So that one, they provided their own crew. And there are times where, just being in the industry enough where I can, pick up a phone and be like, hey, do you want to collab on this? We can do this. But then I do have, a camera and gear if I just want to go and get it. Like that's what I did with Danny Trejo had a new book. And again, that was at the Skirball Center. They asked me to come down. So I got to have I got to talk with him and Ed Begley Jr. And really, again, just great people as well. I mean, Danny was is such a nice guy and very humble, very open about his story and his career. And, he's worked with a lot of people who are friends of mine. So that made for a good conversation. And so that was just, I just brought the setup. I have a wireless mic and actually this is what I got here. You can get one of these on Amazon. Let's see. Oh, here you go.
There you go.
And it's really cool. You get this. This is an M20. You can get it on Amazon, and it's just a mic, and then you plug this. You take this piece and you put it in right at the bottom of your iPhone, and you turn it on, and it connects.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. So you're on the go. It's great. Yeah.
I mean, and if you've been doing this as long with that many episodes, you start acquiring so much gear. And that was what I was curious. Like if you can't see it, I'll have to show you one day. Like I have like a travel bag and a backpack. Like if somebody calls me and says, hey, I need you to do a live, I only need to take the laptop that we're on right now, unplug it in the power cord, stick it all in a bag. And I've got an entire setup for travel. So absolutely.
You have your studio. Oh yeah.
Nate's ready to hook you up. He's got NFL guests.
Right.
He's big with some Ravens players. He's helped us get some NFL players. And
very cool.
Sasha Mitchell was hilarious.
Sasha Mitchell. Oh yeah.
Yep.
The Code Man.
Oh, that's too funny. So, you definitely have touched with some of these, and funny you bring up Danny Trejo. I just saw enough. He's an I would have to say he's one I would love to interview because he just seems like such a down to earth person who's done some very undown to earth things in his life. Like he's been involved. I saw something with him recently where he's like, I don't get these actors, these method actors, and they want to get so into a part. He's like, we go to lunch and somebody wants to yell at me like, hey man, give me that salt. And he's like, who are you talking to right now? Like, would you like the salt? Can you say please? And all I can think to myself is some of these like guys that like Danny Trejo's done dirt. Like he's done real dirt. Like, please don't talk to that man that way. Please don't make him snap. And then we all got to be like walking around with free Danny shirts on. Please don't do that. Don't put that man in that spot. So what are some of the things that you've got coming up that, obviously, you've got the podcast, you've got some directing things that you're doing and producing things that you're still doing, but what do you got coming up here in 2023? I mean, it's day 4 of 2023. What's coming up? I mean, that's crazy to even think it's already 4 days into it. We're 96 hours into
the new year. I know.
96 hours down into it. So what do you got coming up?
Well, we shot a movie last summer. Last I heard they're editing it, so maybe we'll see it out this year. And then there's another project we started filming in November. We did the pitch for it. We submitted to a festival. There's some interest. So we're looking to get that rolling in the spring. And then, yeah, we did, and then there's another project too. We did a photo shoot for, and I'm supposed to meet with the producers in the next month or two. So and it's, honestly, life's good. I moved at the end of the year, and then I just set up the new studio, and I'm just ready to work. We're taking, I've been contacting at different film festivals. They want some more content, so and that's the beauty of LA. And right now, just like what you said about with having your own studio, there's people who just really you can call and be like, hey man, I got this great idea for something, and I feel and a lot of things is, you need to go through some losses, can't be afraid of failure. I mean, I've definitely, it's things go in cycles too. I mean, sometimes I've had good relationships and stuff with people, and all of a sudden there's disagreements about a project, and then someone pulls out of it. And, you have to go through that and understand how it works sometimes. So I'm really fortunate for a lot of the lessons and a lot of the people that I've had. But I feel like right now I've just really had a lot of, great friends, great people in the industry that I believe in, that I want to see succeed. And I feel like, yeah, we're all a family. We all look out for each other.
I don't even know how I pieced this together, but you just said something that was the first time that I realized it. I think we all think of Hollywood as this, especially like I can go upstairs right now. I got 2 TVs in front of me. I can turn my TVs on and I can watch 8 episodes of the new season of whatever. I'm a big Letterkenny fan. I can watch all. If you can get me Jared Kelso, I mean, I'll pay pretty good for Jared to come on my show. I'm just letting you know. That's Wayne from Letterkenny. But I can turn it on, and we almost think that Hollywood is this instantaneous thing. But listening to you, hey, I filmed a movie last year. It's still being edited now. I'm supposed to meet with producers for a photo shoot, in a couple of month or two. So it really is, it's a longer game than I think most of us realize. That's what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Nothing happens overnight. I mean, I've had a few, and it's interesting how certain things just come in a flow. Like I said, like that Shannon Doherty movie, I shot that. Then the person who produced it was my manager at the time, and I was so impressed how they put everything together. And then during that shoot, they were writing something else and had me in mind for the star. So we went they wrapped that movie, then we went right into this other movie, which was this movie called Jack and Cocaine. I played Jack, who's dealing with addiction and living on the streets of LA. So we went right into that after the holidays, and then there was, it just seemed like there was a good string of stuff. Then, then it was more producing for a bit. And then, I mean, this past year, I was so surprised in some of the work that we happened. I mean, I did this annual festival that I do, and then I get a text from a friend of mine who we had her on the show. Her name's Kansas Bowling. She actually played one of the Manson girls in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She's in every shot of the ranch. Her and her sister are on there, but I hadn't, and she was someone who, when I started really around the time when Jack and Cocaine came out, and I was, really kind of hustling, and I discovered the indie circuit too here in LA. Like, I encourage people, go to festivals, connect with people who are making movies. And she was part of that crowd, because she was like this at the time, like this teen prodigy. She had just directed this horror film. They had a big premiere at the Egyptian Theater. So I was like, and I had no idea. I'd met her at Warner Brothers through a mutual friend. We were at this awards show. And so we'd stayed in touch. And then all these years later, she hit me up and said, hey, Kash, I'm doing this movie. Do you want to play opposite me? I'm like, hell yeah. Why not? Of course I would. And then we had a good conversation on the show. And then she was featured in our film festival. She directed a music video by a hip hop artist named Headcrack, and he's out in Georgia. He does the Morning Hustle show. So it's just cool. You just, one thing leads to the next.
Awesome.
I mean, all those years. Yeah. All these years ago, it was like, she was this prodigy filmmaker, just out of high school, directed this movie. We're in the same crowd. She has a friend introduced us at Warner Brothers. I go to her premiere. A few years later, she hits me up for an acting job. She comes on my show. Then we're both at a film festival. So, it's cool. Every people come back around.
That's awesome. And folks, we're going to wrap up here real soon. Cause Kash needs to, he's got Hollywood parties to hit to. He's got all kinds of stuff going on. He's got, he probably has De Niro just waiting in another room right now.
But hey, Bobby, 10 minutes.
Bobby, I'll be right there.
But it brings up a kind of a question as you were mentioning all these indie festivals and all this other stuff. You've watched, you physically have been in the middle of from direct to DVD was a thing to I can order a DVD from Netflix to the world of streaming. Your career has walked that path from '05 to now. Do you feel like you see any difference being an actor because the Netflix and the Hulu and everybody wants to put out content now? Is it easier or harder to get a job? And if it is, and how's the quality of those jobs?
I mean, I think we live in a great time because as you mentioned, I remember being a kid and, a movie comes out, you had to wait 6 months for it to be available on video or pay-per-view. Then a year later, it would be on cable. Now, a lot of times what happens, I mean, yes, of course, the Marvel movies and, your Mavericks, they're going to get a worldwide distribution. And, that's why we go to the movies I understand the demographics and, the theater experience is meant for those types of movies. And I love going to the theater, but there are so many mid-level movies and that's actually what I started noticing because, I was working at WME in like the late 2000s in the voiceover department. And that's, how I was starting to see this shift around the time when I was like working, in more of the professional atmosphere where it was like, okay, things are going, they're like doing sequels, they're cranking out sequels and blockbusters were disappearing. And then I think it was like around 2015. Like I was like doing Jack and Cocaine and doing these other independent movies. And then I was going to these other horror films.
He wasn't doing
I wasn't doing I always have to say I wasn't doing Jack and Cocaine.
He wasn't drinking Jack and snorting cocaine. It was a movie.
Exactly. And then I was noticing, like a movie would get released and then they'd have a big premiere. And then that night it was available to download. And that's when I saw the marketing aspect of it, where it's like, you get you want influencers with big social media marketing. So that's like a built-in audience. And so the thing is, I like that there's opportunities and I'm all about people working. I mean, I want, just pick up a camera, get some stuff going at the same time. But then there's this thing where one, it's like, again, I have to be selective about what I see because, we're working all the time. It's not like, I can't and I always worry about binging a new show because I'm like, I'm going to be hooked on this. I'm not going to get enough done. So, but I think there is a lot of good content and there's a lot of great actors. And I feel like 20, 25 years ago with that formula, I was just saying there would have been a lot of movies that may have never seen the light of day, or I hear stories about actors say, oh, we shot this movie, we never saw it again. But now it seems like there's an audience for anything. So, why not just be options, and you make a decision if it's something that you want to see or something you want to skip. But, at least people are out there. There's a platform and people have a shot. So more power to them.
Now you mentioned binging shows. Yeah, obviously you probably do it. I have my new favorites. I went as soon as it ended. It was Last Kingdom was one of my favorites that's ever been on TV. Justified is still my number one show that I've ever watched. Is there any shows out there that's on the cash radar? It's on the cash register right now to pay the bills. What's on the cash register? I like that. You can coin that. What's on the cash register that's going to pay the bills, that if you could be on one of those shows right now and be, I don't care what ancillary character it is, what binge worthy show would you like to be on?
Oh gosh. I mean, I love, one of my favorite shows ended this year, Better Call Saul. Huge Breaking Bad fan. I mean, I'd love, like, that's my kind of a show. If I could just, with the writing, the kinds of characters, I mean, that would be a dream come true, a show like that.
Have you watched Snowfall yet?
I haven't seen Snowfall yet.
Oh my gosh. Cash. When we get off of here, forget about Bobby D. Forget about them guys that are out there in the hallway waiting to get on your show. You need to watch Snowfall. It's about It's Los Angeles in the 80s, and it's about the CIA bringing cocaine and creating the crack epidemic.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. I know. Oh gosh. I think
it's
I started
FX show. FX, brother. I promise you, on all that's holy, it is like my wife and I sit down and we'll watch like an episode, and we'll look at the time. We're like, it's 9:30. We just watched one. I will play another one. And now it's 10:30. And, next thing we know is we got somebody in here. Potamus. What's up, Potamus? I'm not sure who that is. Hi. They're on Twitch checking us out. We appreciate you hanging out. But yeah, definitely that's my recommendation. So we're gonna get ready to close up the shop here, put a bow on everything, folks.
And I also, not to cut you off, also you mentioned Justified. My really good friend Valerie Brandy played Trixie on Justified on FX, and she was a guest on the show, and she actually came on Good Day Live with us.
Who was she on Justified?
She was Trixie. She was in the 3rd season. Valerie Brandy.
Yeah, I know who Trixie. Yes, I love that show. And thank you, Potetmus. Just wanted to say hi. Hi, Potetmus. I appreciate you popping in. We appreciate you. But yes, I am. Justified's coming back, right?
Oh, it is. Okay. Oh, I gotta talk to Val. Okay.
Yeah, they're doing a. So Timothy Oliphant is doing another series with that, where instead of Raylan Givens being in Harlan County, he's back to being a U.S. Marshal in the city. So he's taking place in a city somewhere, which is interesting because that's actually the very first episode. He was a marshal in Miami.
All right.
So very first, before they send him back to Harlan County, where he was originally from, and he knew everybody. So I told you that was my show. Patton Oswalt. Patton Oswalt was on that show.
Patton, okay, yeah, I like Patton.
But I think Patton get into everything. Like, if you need he's that guy where you're like, did you know Patton Oswalt was in that? Where the hell was Patton Oswalt? Just go watch the damn shit. He's in the movie. And next thing you know, you're like, no shit. Potetma says, I am so lost in Hollywood films and actors. The films don't get that much cinema time over here compared to the local stuff. Where's over here at there, Potetmus? You have to tell us where over here is at. But that's a great point. I know we're getting ready to wrap this up because you've got to get ready to run there, Cash. But that's a great point. I just watched Black Adam on HBO Max. Okay. That's not been out of the theaters a couple of months. It's been ago it was released. I don't like those movies. I don't even go to the theaters. I'm not a big theater person anymore, only because I've got kids and a 5-year-old and all these other things. She's in Norway. I heard Troll was a global. Okay. Oh, are you talking about Netflix Troll? That I heard was very good. I haven't got a chance to watch it. And thank you for joining us from Norway. That's so awesome. Look, this is the Above the Bar podcast international version. So we're gonna get ready to put a bow on this thing, folks. Make sure you go check out Cash and Cash's show, On the Air with Cash, and that's Kash. That S he uses the $. You can find him there. Make sure you're checking out his IMDb, his Instagram. He's on Facebook. He's on LinkedIn. You name it. You can find Cash everywhere. He's just like myself. Reach out there, find him, follow him. He's got about 35 different Instagram pages that either somebody has made for him or, his fan pages. I expect that all of you are jumping on those. Potetma says so many local spots were filmed during it. Actually saw the huge Viking ship arena near it. I'm gonna have to go. I know exactly the movie you're talking about. Troll. I just haven't watched it yet. I need to go. It's on my list. It's actually on my add to my list. So I need to go watch that one. Potetmus, you're gonna make me go watch it. So make sure you're reaching out. You're going and finding Cash. If you're finding us through Cash, as I always say, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all those different spots. Instagram is the Above the Bar podcast. TikTok is the Above the Bar podcast. Biggest thing that you can do for us is when you see our pages on Facebook or you see anything, you start following us, do both Cash and I a favor. You cannot understand how important it is to us to take a moment, give us a 5-star rating, give us a comment. That's how other people find us. If you enjoy Cash's content and you want it to grow, give him a 5-star rating and give him a comment. If you like this content, give us a 5-star rating, give us a comment. Other people get to see it. It grows, and you get to be one of those people that say, hey, I knew about it when. Now, Cash, don't log off on me here. I got one thing I got to talk to you afterwards for just a moment. We do have to take care of one important thing. As tradition on the show, the guest always gets the final word. So what is the final word from you, Kash?
Well, first, I want to thank you, Sean, for having me on your podcast. This has been great talking to you, and just everyone listening. I really appreciate all your support. And really, I mean, Sean is amazing, and we've had just such a great conversation. Please tune into his podcast. It's a blast, and really just keep believing in yourself. And like we were talking about earlier, I just love that there's so much accessibility these days. So if you want to start a show or get a movie done, there's so much accessible. So get out there and do it.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation, found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.